He served as the public relations officer of the Gambia Police Force. We'll be discussing about national security and many other things. But before all that, I will start with the papers, and Standard is reporting that Gambians trust religious leaders than politicians. That is, the Gambians have more trust in religious leaders than politicians, according to a Pan-African non-partisan research network that conducts policy surveys on governance, democracy, economic conditions, and related issues in Africa. The survey specifically said 8 in 10 Gambians, that is 85% of Gambians, trust religious leaders, while 7 in 10, that is 71%, trust traditional leaders, and 6 in 10, that is 67%, trust President Adama Barrow. The survey's findings were presented to journalists, government officials, and civil society players by Dr. Ismaila Cisse, one of the members of the group. And the Afrobarometer survey released on Friday at the Kairaba Beach Hotel ranks religious leaders as the most trusted in the Gambian society based on the reaction of the people covering in the survey. And UDP executive speaks on the Congress, that is the National Executive Committee of the United Democratic Party, heartily congratulates all those who were elected at the recently concluded Congress across the length and breadth of the country. All the party structures from ward, constituencies, and religious executive committees levels participated actively in the whole process. This exercise is in the internal party democracy is mandated both by the Constitution of the party and the electoral laws of the Gambia, the press release stated. And former anti-drug police chief threatened to sue for wrongful dismissal, that is Pate Jao. The former deputy director of the Drug Law Enforcement Agency has threatened a lawsuit against the government of the Gambia for wrongful termination. Jallo said he was dismissed from his position when the former president, Yahya Jammeh, was informed that he went to U.S. Embassy to seek for support from the regional security officer attacked to the U.S. Embassy over an investigation he was following concerning the 10 tons of drugs seized at Bonto village. He said, and I quote, "I have decided to take the government of the Gambia to both the High Court and the ECOWAS Court after exhausting all possible measures to get my job back," he told the Standard in an exclusive interview. And ex-governor Gani Ture denies ordering Binta Kouyate's arrest. That is, the former governor of Central River Region, Gani Ture, has denied any involvement in the arrest of Binta Kouyate, saying her claims were meant to tarnish his image. Binta Kouyate told the TRRC, that is the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, event that at the Gambia Pastoral Institute recently that she was arrested and detained by Jammeh enablers under the orders of Governor Gani Ture. However, Mr. Ture, who walked into the office of the Standard newspaper yesterday to explain his side of the story, said he only learned about Kouyate's arrest when the police brought her to his office for him to endorse her remand warrant. And that is on the Standard. I will move on to the Point newspaper, and the Point is also reporting that majority of Gambians trust President Barrow. That is a survey by Afrobarometer, and a commission of inquiry cannot be sued, as Supreme Court declares. That is, the Supreme Court of the Gambia has presided over by Justice Hassan Babukar Jallo, has declared that any party cannot sue the commission of inquiries. And the police business executives most corrupt in the Gambia. That is the survey by the Afrobarometer. That's like on the order. They had a survey, and it was released on Friday at Kairaba Beach Hotel. And the press release of the Afrobarometer's round 7 findings on the Gambian perception on trust corruption in the institution shows that police and business executives are the most corrupt in the country. And moving on and to the Foraya newspaper, and Foraya is reporting that they also reporting that 2019 will be better governed. That is Governor Jammeh, the governor of Central Bank of the Gambia, Bakari Jammeh, told journalists that 2019 is going to be better for the economy of the country. Jammeh revealed this on Thursday, 29 October 2018, during the Monetary Policy Committee meeting at the Central Bank of the Gambia. He continued, and I quote, "Our forecast for 2019 is that growth may reach up to 6% or even higher. If we get most of the support to the government, the country's currency will remain stable, inflation will start going down, jobs will be created, and construction will boom, and the telecommunication will move favorably." That is the statement by the Governor of Central Bank of the Gambia, Bakari Jami. And Tango leader urged members to be transparent and accountable. That is the chairperson of the Association of the Non-Governmental Organization, that is Tango, has called on all non-state actors to be transparent and accountable to their stakeholders. John Charles Njai made the statement last Saturday, December 1st, 2018, at a day-long open forum which was held at the University of the Gambia Faculty of Law Auditorium to mark the commemoration of National Democracy Day under the theme Building, Strengthening Inclusive and Accountable Democracy and Good Governance in the Gambia. And on the Gambia Today, they are also reporting that Same Kantora women sensitized on drug-related crimes. That is the members of Same Kantora Women's Charitable Association based in Combo were recently sensitized in the crusade on drug-related crime as well as teenage pregnancy. And on the Voice newspaper, the Voice also is reporting about the survey by the Afrobarometer, and the Gambia mourns the death of veteran journalist. You may remember Swebu Konate of News and Report passed on last week, and at the age of 78. And that's all we have for you on the papers today. I will now turn to my guest, Aziz Bojang. He was a former police officer who served as the spokesperson for the Gambia Police Force. Mr. Bojang, welcome to the Fati Network.
Thank you, Omar Wali.
It has been a while. Where have you been hiding?
Well, I am out of the country, currently in Canada,
okay.
Ottawa, with my family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today we'll be talking about security.
Okay.
And quite often when you talk to people, they will always talk about national security, national interests, and so on. Yeah. Now, I want you to define what is national security.
Well, first of all, I think I would like to take the opportunity to express my most sincere condolence on the loss of veteran journalist Swaibu Konate. Okay. My sincere condolence to his family and the entire journalism fraternity. Thank you also for giving me the opportunity to come here and share my views about security or national security. National security may mean different things to different people, and therefore there may not be a single definition. But my understanding of national security is about those institutions, industries, relationships that are essential for our well-being, or the absence of which are likely to threaten our well-being and development.
Now, I know you are out of the country, but you have come back, and as a security expert, if I may put it that way, somebody who's serving the police for many years, what do you think are some of the security challenges the country is facing now?
I've not had the opportunity to interact with personnel and the security sector, especially at the strategic level. Okay. But my understanding from when I left is that there have been a lot of challenges. Foremost of all is the lack of a national security policy, which would have been the reference point for all our security mobilization and our activities. That is lacking. The absence of data that would have informed our security challenges and how we deploy our resources is also a challenge. So basically, this is the challenge at the strategic level. There are other challenges at the operational level. But I think when we address the challenges at the strategic level, we will be able to deal with the rest.
So you talked about the like national security policy and so on, but what do you think should be the immediate priorities now for the government?
Well, I think the major priority should be to work on the national security policy, and I understand that they are already on it. I don't know what is in it,
okay,
but what I would expect is that they should broaden the national security beyond the military aspects to include non-military aspects. That is something that I hope to see. I also hope to see the restructuring of the National Security Council, because from the way it is set up right now, it clearly shows that government's priority is military aspect, and security is more than just military aspect. The composition of the council too need to be revisited, and I have a problem with the chairpersonship of the Security Council, in the sense that that is the highest level of authority, and I have a feeling that it should reside with the chief executive of this country.
So, let me cut you short there. For example, Jammeh's time, as we know, Asadunjai said he was the chairperson of the National Security Council. What you are putting across is that instead of Asadunjai said it's supposed to be Yahya Jammeh who's supposed to be the head of the...
Yes, okay, absolutely. And the reason is that in the event of a national emergency, it's the chief executive or the executive president that has the mandate to call up our resources and capabilities to deploy them to deal with any threat, so that the nation can also hold him to account. To leave that to an unelected official could be a little bit problematic. And I think we've seen that during Jammeh's time when we have that student riot. Yeah. One of the challenges that they had was, even though the vice president was the chairperson, she could not give orders. So she has to rely on the head of state. So it is very important, and that is the normal practice across all countries. In fact, when you look at the role of the president anywhere, is to provide us national security. That's his role. You cannot delegate such a substantial role to someone, especially someone who is not elected. I have nothing against the vice president, and I am happy that he's doing his work, but in terms of security sector and structures, I think that is what needs to be done.
Now this will take us another, that has to do with the security sector reform. We have been hearing about this thing for a very long time. So what is your position on this?
I think the first question that we should ask is, why the need?
Okay.
And I think there is a need for security sector reform. We came out of a post-dictatorship where the leadership at the time has interfered with the security arrangements, the structure, the institutions. Where the leadership also was almost the one that was using the security forces to repress the population. So I don't think I will say we have a civil conflict, but we were almost at that stage. And in both civil conflicts and in dictatorships, those in power tend to use the military, the police, to abuse people's human rights. They also have a tendency of recruiting their loyalists or even militias to put them in power so that they can repress the masses. So in our own case, I think we've seen things like recruitment of former Jammeh loyalists, like the militia, what's his name, Green Boys into the police and the military. Yes, and the military. So there is a need, but also the other need is, if the organization and the task are not matching. So the task of security and the organizations that we have are not matching, they are outdated. So there is a need to have a security sector reform that will look not only at the structures, but the institutions, the oversights, but also broaden the reforms beyond just the security forces, because security sector is more than just the police, the military. It includes the justice system. It includes the corrections. You have to reform them in ways that they are all functioning, because they feed on each other. It's like a machine. If you restructure one part and leave the others, it will not work. It will get stuck.
Now, let's talk about that. You're talking about the security reform.
Yeah.
15 years ago, the Gambian force was really like less than 2,000 or 2,000 or so, but now, a few years down the line, it's over 8,000. As from the CDS to an interview that said those figures. Do we need? There's always this question. Some will say we don't need the military, or even if we need the military, what do you think the military decides to be, and what should their focus be?
I think we already have a military, so whether we need it or not, it's here.
Okay.
Probably what we need to look at is to match the size with our resources and also the task. So what is the task today? What is the function? We have to define that. And then look at the threats. So the task of the military is to defend us from external threat. Do we really have an external threat? And what sort of threat and what sort of capabilities do we require to deal with that threat?
So now, do we have an external threat? Looking at the nature of this country, surrounded both 3 sides or so by Senegal.
I think we don't. That is not to say that it is not there, but I think it's not existential. Because for territorial integrity, I don't think Senegal is interested in invading this country anytime. There is no interest in that. So our territory is probably intact. What we're thinking is internal dissidents probably accessing our country through Senegal. That's a possibility, but it's remote. But even if it is there, is it smart to have such a large army? Would it not be better to build good relationship with our neighbors so that at least they can help reduce that? So in all honesty, I think our threat is more internal. The existential threat is more of internal than external. And for internal threats, it's the police that deals with it, although we may need military at some point to help.
Like you said, our problem is internal, but looking at the southern part of Senegal, which borders the other part of the country, we have, there are some call them separatists, some call them secessionists, whatever you call them, some call them bandits. Because like it's in Cabinda in Angola and so on. But Casamance, what do you make of Casamance region towards the Gambian internal security?
I think if Casamance is not stable, we are not. We are not stable. But that extends to the entire region, the whole of West Africa. Whichever part of West Africa is unstable or destabilized, we will be threatened. That is because we are interlinked. But with Senegal, we are almost the same. In fact, it's difficult to identify who is Gambian and who is Senegalese. So that someone could be committing atrocities across the border, but at the same time having Gambian citizenship. So it is essential. But let's look at the region itself. Initially, they were fighting independence. But I think along the line, that objective has no relevance now. What I think is happening is that international organized crime infiltrating those freedom fighters, giving them money to destabilize the region for their own interests. There is evidence, and is well researched, even at the level of ECOWAS, that South American drug cartels are using West African region from Guinea-Conakry all the way to Casamance as landing hubs for drugs in transit to the West. So destabilizing the region is in their interest.
Okay.
And this is why it is important that the region, ECOWAS, have all the resources they require to be able to deal with them. And that brings me to say that there is a need to have a standby force at some of these borders.
Okay, for example, in the Fonyi end where the border stretches now. So, but you know, Jammeh has been accused of supporting these people. So how long do you think the rebellion or the banditry will continue in Kasa? Because if you remember, in Sri Lanka, you know, the Tamil Tigers were fighting the government of President Mahinda Rajapaksa. But when they pushed them to areas like Chinkamali and others, at the time of General Sarafon Sek, there were no weapons and they end up defeating them after many years. So is there any likelihood of something happening, even though there will not be a confrontation, but in the event they didn't get supply from the South Americans and the food and other things from other suppliers, what will be their fate, the MFDC?
I think they will eventually die down or they will turn into a political organization. In fact, MFDC was a political organization from the onset, set up by one Mamadou Dia, and even Senghor was one of their members as a political party.
But what went wrong? Let's talk about MFDC.
Somewhere along the line. No. I want us to just... Yes, what I want to bring in, this perspective that I want to bring in is organized crime normally look for space that is not governed, public space that has not been governed. And we realize that in the past, the southern part of Senegal was neglected and it was not governed. And this is why it was vulnerable to all kinds of criminality. What the ECOWAS need to do, and Senegal in particular, is to reclaim that space from criminal organizations so that they govern the entire space. Once that's happened, there is no chance that organized crime can infiltrate. And this is also why we need to have these forces on our border to help us.
ECOMIC is already there.
Yes.
What do you make of ECOMIC's presence? Because even some people are protesting that they don't want them in that border, in that part of the country.
Given the nature of international criminal threats, I think they need to be there because organized crime have capacities that we may not have. Yeah. Yet they are not standing armies. They can challenge our security forces with weapons and capabilities that they do not have. Having international forces stationed at our border is the smartest way to go about. And that should not only be Gambia, but almost in all this, our sub-region, we need that. We've seen what happened in Mali. It's not that an army of terrorists came and invaded the Niger, Algeria, Mali region. No. They saw an opportunity that there is no government presence here. They started to infiltrate that region and started to provide services to the communities. So they challenged the sovereignty of a nation. And the capabilities to deal with them is so complex that one country cannot handle that threat.
Even France
yes. Oh, you still have Japanese forces in, US forces in Japan. Okinawa. You have US forces in Europe with all their sophistication. It's about the threat. And I think we need to have these forces. Let us overcome our national pride and see the bigger picture. And that is the threat that is likely to arise from ungoverned space.
Talking about the internal threat, is Jammeh a threat, the former president?
I don't think. I think Jammeh, for one, is thinking of his survival more than anything else.
Okay, yeah.
But you have people who were around Jammeh, who benefited from the status quo, and who feel threatened that justice is closing up on them. Okay. They are likely to react, but in real sense, I don't think they have the opportunity to destabilize the country so long as we have these forces, because they don't have any space from within. The only space that they have was to probably launch any attack from the ungoverned space in Casamas. Okay. So I don't think realistically Jammeh is a threat anymore. And for him, I am sure he's looking at how much he can survive this.
Another thing, you know, when the new government, you were in the police and you heard about the anti-crime unit and so on. So some, it doesn't make sense, we don't need it, but others also said it's cutting down crime. What is your position again on this anti-crime unit of the Gambia Police Force?
I think outwardly it seems to solve a problem, because we have, at some point, people's perception of crime was that crime was in the increase, and they needed to see police action. What I want to see is on what basis this unit is formed and what is the long-term objective. What is the effectiveness of this unit in terms of dealing with crime? Where is the evidence? It is one thing to display a number of people that are arrested, but we want to see data on how many of those people have been successfully investigated, prosecuted, and convicted. So the clearance records would have shown whether this approach is effective. We must also caution against the balloon effect. Squeezing the balloon, when you squeeze a balloon, others will kind of inflate. This place will deflate, but the others will inflate. What I mean by that in terms of this operation is, yes, they may be successful in dislocating criminals from one place, okay, only to see that they resurface elsewhere. The idea is to neutralize crime, to completely kind of reduce the capabilities of criminals, but not to chase them from one distance only for them to resurface. The other thing is, the operation must be based on data. I've not seen any data that suggests that this is the best way to deal with this. Thirdly, it is resource intensive. This kind of operation is resource intensive. Is it sustainable? How many resources are going into this? And is there a better way to deal with the same issue without having to spend so much resources, especially in terms of human resources?
You talk about dispersing criminals. Let's talk about the joint security operations now. You'll see at times they'll blend 1 or 2, 3 to go and do operation. For example, the military will give a backup to the drug squad when they are doing an operation, or police or the immigration or might come in to help the police in controlling the crowd. Tell us something about this as a security expert.
Okay, contemporary security requires multidisciplinary approach. So if you look at it from that aspect, it is really important. And the reasoning for that is the nature of threats now are such that the threat may lie with the responsibility to deal with that threat may lie with a particular institution, a security institution, whilst the capability to deal with that lies with another. In this case, there is a need to combine to conduct joint security operations. However, there must be clear protocols outlining the role of each of these security services in that joint operation. If it is internal operation, police supremacy must always be ensured. The nature of the operation should be on ad hoc. Okay. That is to say, let's come together, do this and finish. Not to have a permanent, because the danger of having permanent structures of combined forces have the potential to breed police officers who act like military or military officers who behave like police. And that is a threat in itself. So yes, the operations are essential, but there should be clear protocols.
Before I leave you, there was an announcement made by the president that he's going to build Banjul Barrack. Some said it is not a priority. What do you think, a security man?
I think it's a priority.
Why?
I'm going to sound controversial here, but I just want your audience to take time and listen to me.
No, they will listen.
I spoke earlier on about broadening and widening security beyond the military aspect. The threats that we have today are not only military, they are environmental, they are health, they are infrastructure. But let's look at Banjul. Okay. Banjul is the seat of government. It's our economic hub. Everything that we have, our National Assembly, our national pride, our national identity resides in Banjul. There are studies, environmental studies, that indicated that Banjul is above sea level, which means it is vulnerable to climate change and rising sea levels. Assuming today, let's just kind of think of a scenario where Banjul is flooding. It is a city that only have one entry and one exit. In the case of emergency, there will be chaos. Banjul has only probably a population of 42,000 people, but every day you have over 50,000 coming to do business there. Imagine an emergency. Where is the exit? Even if we have emergency services, I bet you if I am driving an ambulance, if I take people out, I'm not going to come. So there is a need to have an alternative exit. And boats or ferries are not efficient for that. So from a national security perspective, I think it's a smart thing. It may not be immediate, but it's something to consider. In addition to that, until we get a bridge, we should also have a national emergency evacuation plan for Banjul, and that exercise must take place. I remember a couple of years back when I was here, when Banjul was flooding, part of Banjul was flooding, the National Assembly, where it is now, was one of those areas that are flooding because it is flat. So imagine if that is where the flood starts. Even rescue services cannot come. The other thing is our bridges are critical infrastructure. You don't need to paralyze the government by attacking military barracks, but just attack Denton Bridge, destroy it, and life stops. So it is important, and we should, as Gambians, as security forces, look beyond the political aspect of it to look at the existential threat of the environment. In addition to that, Banjul should have a special legislation dealing with how residents deal with Banjul. What residents can and cannot do. Because otherwise, our own activities is threatening the city. The mass of land that used to exist is no longer existing and is shrinking by the day.
Before you go, we must talk about the traffic.
Okay.
Traffic control, traffic management. Before I will talk about robberies and so on.
Yeah.
Because let's talk about traffic control and traffic management. What are these two things? Because to some is one thing, but others also don't think the police are doing to both of them, the management and the control. So which one are the police doing and which one are they not doing?
I think I would say road, just to broaden it,
yeah.
I'll say road safety and traffic control. Okay, what I have seen police doing is controlling traffic, that is directing traffic.
Yeah.
But they're not doing road safety. And road safety is beyond the police.
Okay, who should come into that?
It is a multi-disciplinary and a multifaceted approach. It starts from the engineering of the road, the design, and of course the vehicles, and even the people, how we ordinary pedestrians behave on the road. But this is, for me, an area that should be prioritized, because what we have failed to look at is comparing what is the most threatening issues of our security. Is it robbery? Is it housebreaking? Or is it road traffic crashes?
Okay, which one?
When you look at the statistics,
yes.
we have more people dying on our roads than we have dying through gunshots or the robberies. So our focus should be more on road safety. It is exhausting our medical resources. It is depleting our young people. Most of the people that are dying on our roads are unfortunately young people. And this is why, again, I come back to the issue of the absence of data. And I hope that at this point, the police will engage, say, the University of the Gambia to carry out study on some of these issues.
Yeah.
So if we are to have an effective road safety program or network, we need the whole of government, municipal councils, we need Ministry of Works, we need national road authorities. Because when roads are designed, we see people encroaching the pavements completely. We've seen people whose business are on public space entirely. We've seen garages, repair garages that are placed on public space that cause obstruction. I don't think we have too many vehicles. No. Our vehicles are not so much that we cannot ply our roads safely. But because people or the authorities are not engaging on some of these aspects, that's what we are having. So I expect that the local municipalities will not issue any license to anyone to trade on the highways. I also expect that the road authority will have some sort of machinery to remove all derelict vehicles. I also expect some legislation forcing all businesses to be housed out of public space. In that way, we will have smooth access, and then the police can run traffic control. So it's about police also letting out that ownership. They should not take ownership of everything. It's beyond them. We need to sensitize people on their own safety. The concept here is whenever there is an accident, it's the driver who is at fault. And to some extent, it's important. But the behavior of pedestrians on the road endangers other road users, including motorists. Sometimes you try to avoid a reckless pedestrian and you end up knocking on something. That pedestrian needs to be held accountable. So that is important. The medical and health need to provide statistics of people that they attend to from road traffic accidents and the amount of resource. And the most difficult thing about this is that even the medical department cannot be able to project properly the number of cases that they can deal with.
Aziz, finally, what will be your final message? It has been a long and a very interactive, educative, if I put it that way.
Yes, I think my message is that we need to continue the conversation.
Okay.
Security should be the business of everybody, including the media. That society have a role in transforming not only how police do business, but even government. We should not glorify on the achievement or on the performance, which I seem to see here in this country, that we glorify badness and we don't value achievement. Until society uses its power to informally control itself, leaving everything to government will not work.
Thank you so much, Aziz. Thank you so much. That is Aziz Bojang, the former police spokesperson of the Gambia Police Force. And we will move on to a story, and that is the, as you know, rising unemployment among the young people remains a major challenge in the country, not only in the Gambia but beyond. And Fadu Network's Mami Selikan today went and met some youth at traffic light and shared their stories with her. They have been into weaving and other skillful jobs. So let's take a listen to the report, and when we come, we continue with this song.
tama ne xaaral ma góorgóorlu ma jàngal ci garden bi fa laa jàpp since 1998 maa ngi ci kawam sama boss bu ma nekkoon di jàngal yëpp garden moom moo jàngal yëpp jagari pot mooy flower pot dama gis ne flower pot ak garden ñoo war a ànd without flower pot ñu garden bokk moo tax ma xaaral ma góorgóorlu ma jàng ma muñ ci ak coono bi ma muñ ci ma xam ne ëllëg dina ma njëriñ because ma xam naa flower pot nu mu jar because am getting maa ngi war a am famille maa ngi war a takk jabar maa ngi war a am famille moo tax ma ne xaaral ma jàpp si bien yàlla dimbali ma mun métier bi ma góorgóorlu ma ubbi suma man bii kay balaa maa nekk di liggéey ak suma bopp ba léegi suma bopp mu fer ma bopp bu ma feree ci laa ubbi suma place since 2005 may góorgóorlu di jàppale suma njaboot yi di dimbale suma waajur yi suma yaay yi.
waaw profit du ñàkk wante léegi-léeg tamit profit xaw a am nu mu demee léeg-léeg situation day ñëw soo gisee client bu ñëw taxaw soo gisee njëg boo xam ne xaw naa yemamaay tuuti nga jël su fekkee gis nga ne yaa ngi bëri liggéey ci jamono boobu noonu ci ngay mën a capitalize pour mën a am profit yi baax si yow waaw su fekkee yaa ngi toog yorloo liggéey yaa ngi poos yaa ngi xaw a bënn weer baa ngi dee lekk ak naan ak paas dem ak ñëw yooyu noonu su waree génn du yomb. mën ngaa xëy tey mu neex nga toog weer du neex mën ngaa xëy tey mu neex suba mu neex gannaaw suba mu neex nga toog full 1 week boo xam ne doo gis kenn kuy ñëw taxaw fii ne la ñaata xam nga yooyu yombut. mën ngaa yi tamit di xëy muy neex di continuer wante bu jëkkee mu stop tamit ci neex jamono bi muy neex noonu si ngay sóoraale ne benn bis su arrêté su yëf yi taxawee nag da nga war a muñ moo la ciy génnee.
jàng amul ñëpp mënut a nekk si office wala nañ tra ñu métier bi ñu mën a dimbale suñu bopp dimbale réewam bi daa metti rek waaye da nga liggéey loolu la dafa metti donc di nga am si njëriñ nu metti la nga am si njëriñ waaw ma nga ci am njëriñ la alhamdulilah sant yàlla foofu laay sant foofu laay sutura suma mbokk suma waajur yëpp. maa ngi lu may ñaan xale yi ñu nekk si kër gi nekkul ñu liggéey nañ góorgóorlu ñu fas ñu jàpp liggéey bi kon liggéey bi la moo nekkul liggéey bu police la because yaa ngi si njëriñu yaa ngi daan sa doole yaa ngi si njëriñ bi liggéey bu wóor la bu set la bu lewet la sa ñaxa bu set la sàcculoo kenn tappaloo kenn sa ñaxa bu wóor la so liggéey bi dañu war a fexe ñu jàng liggéey bi metti na waaye dañu war a fexe ñu am suñu liggéey moo gën di wóor di tamambala si liggéey.
Welcome back. It was a story by Mami Selikan there, and I have joined now by our editor Lamin Jai. He was recently in Senegal attending the Congress. You may remember, or you may know, Senegalese will be going to elections and next year to elect a new president. And some candidates are also, Macky Sall is going for another term, and there are also candidates who will be challenging him. So tell us where was this Congress held, and what's the genesis about this whole thing?
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, viewers. Yes, this Congress was the Congrès, they call it Congrès l'investiture. As you already know, Senegal, various political parties. Senegal boasts of over 70 political parties, but this year, in the upcoming elections in February 2019, various political parties have started forming coalitions. So this is the grand coalition. It's the biggest coalition of at least 20 political parties called Benno Bokk Yakaar. Okay. Macky Sall, they've officially chosen Macky Sall as their candidate in the upcoming election. So that Congress on Saturday was meant to officially endorse Mr. Sall as their candidate.
This seems to be historic, over 20 political parties.
Of course, this is one of the biggest, hugely successful events in Senegal. It was held at Dakar Arena, a modern state-of-the-art facility, sport facility, with a capacity of 15,000 people. It was a full house, and one thing that made this event historic is the fact that at least 4 leaders or presidents in the ECOWAS sub-region, including President Adama Barrow, attended this meeting, this political meeting. So it was very, very important.
Some of our viewers want to see your face. They say you should turn your face to the camera there. So, okay, tell us. We know Macky, to some is a popular guy, but others, how popular is Macky in Senegal?
Well, I can tell you Macky is quite popular in Senegal. I was fascinated by the show of support and love at the Dakar Arena in Diamniadio. Diamniadio is a fast developing city in Senegal, some 300 kilometers from Dakar. So that was where the event was held. Macky Sall was there to accept the task that has been handed him by the Benno Bokk Yakaar political front.
So who are the main contenders of this election? Because you understand, the former mayor of Dakar is not going to contest, and Karim Wade's issue is on the balance now. So who are the main challengers to President Sall? So
Macky Sall, in Senegal, you have some opponents, some key opponents of Macky Sall. You have the likes of Idriss Seck. You also have the new entrant, Ousmane Sonko, who is quite popular in Senegal. You also have other Ousmane Tanor Dieng, for example, is also there. So these are some of the people, key people who will be contesting the February elections against Macky Sall.
So what, just a gist of what President Macky Sall said, just a line.
So in his acceptance speech, what Macky Sall started by doing was to thank his counterpart, heads of state, including President Adama Barrow. They were all there. They were there actually for this Liberal Alliance Forum. This is a forum of liberal political parties. The Liberal Alliance is an organization of liberal political parties. Some important heads of state within our region attended this meeting, including President Adama Barrow. You also had the President of Cote d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara. We also had President of Liberia, George Weah was also there. The President of Mauritania was also there. So it was an important event in the sense that when Macky Sall took to the podium, he first started by thanking these leaders for coming to support him in this venture of his. He also went on to speak on some of the major achievements which cut across board, of course, from the economy to infrastructure to education to health. And he also rolled out or announced his 5-point plan because all this is anchored on his emerging Senegal agenda that he wants to take Senegal to the next level in terms of development by 2035. So this 5-point plan, among them you have one of the most important priorities to him, which is education, youth. According to him, the youth make up 63% of Senegal's population. That it is important to invest in the youth, as it means investing in Senegal's future. He also talked about industrialization. Senegal is doing very well in that aspect. He also talked about other issues, among them infrastructure. He's doing very well. Senegal is working closely with the Gambia, for example, when it comes to the Farafenni Bridge, which will go very well for both countries. So he also spoke on other aspects too, issues like social cohesion, and the fact that he also thanked the coalition partners. The fact that Senegal, since 2012, when he rode to power on the wings of the APR coalition, APR was also a coalition. So since then, despite the political differences in Senegal, they've been able to put their country first. And Senegal, as we speak, is one of the largest economies in our region. So this was a very important event, Omar.
Okay, thank you, Lamin. We will take a listen to a clip by President Macky Sall at the event. Let's take a listen to the Senegalese president.
And now, viewers, to the most important part of this event. The most important part of this gathering has finally arrived. Mr. Macky Sall, the President of Senegal, will now give an acceptance speech.
Président de la République de Côte d'Ivoire, chers frères, chers aînés,
That was President Macky Sall,
Monsieur le Président Mohamed,
who has officially accepted to be the candidate for the Benno Bokk Yakaar political front for the upcoming election here in Senegal. Macky Sall, in his speech, first of all, started by recognizing and thanking counterpart presidents of the ECOWAS sub-region. As you already know, the president of the Gambia, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, the president of Guinea-Conakry, the president of Mauritania, the president of Liberia, and the prime minister of Guinea-Bissau are all here to show support to their friend and their colleague Macky Sall. According to Macky Sall, that these presidents, despite their busy schedules, decided to grace this event. He described this event as historic. He also went on to thank Liberal International, the organizers of a two-day event that was held between the 29th and the 30th of November. He also thanked the Communist, in his statement, thanked the Communist Party of China's representatives who gave a statement here. He said that all he is saying that he is pleased and happy that these people made it to this event to come and support him. He also thanked everyone and then went on to say that since 2012, that was the year he came to power, despite the differences that he had with other, despite the political differences. The people of Senegal share the same.
Well, that was President Macky Sall of Senegal there in his acceptance speech there. So you kind of summarizing some of or translating some of those French things into context. So just to wrap up, what else can you tell us about the whole event?
What I can tell you, Omar, is that this event is coming at a time when there was some tinkering when it comes to elections or politics in Senegal. There was you can recall that there was a referendum in 2006 March, when some amendments or changes were made to the Senegal constitution, a total of 15 changes approved by at least 60% of the Senegalese population. And one of the most important changes is the fact that the constitution has now reduced the presidential term from 7 years to 5 years. So this is one of the major achievements of President Macky Sall.
So it used to be if you serve 2 times, it will be like 14 years, but now it's going to be 10
It's going to be 10 years
And
now.
that was under President Macky Sall when he took over.
Yes. Macky Sall, in fact, wanted this to come earlier, but then against his wishes, this will come into force from the next election, starting from the next election.
All right. So thank you so much, Lamin Jai, for that. That's our editor. He was at the Congress in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. That's all we have for you today from me and my team. I thank you all. Till tomorrow.